welcome to this project vlog where I am going to try and get over my fear of natural dyeing. I went to a workshop on Friday, so fingers crossed that having done it once with supervision, I'm okay to have a go of it by myself. I don't know why I'm so scared of it, but I've had all the stuff for ages, so we're gonna have a go. So step one, grab some fibre and scour it. So out of the fluff shed, I've got this lightly scoured. I've just done it with a hose. Fleece, this is from Barbara, and she is some form of Hebridean cross. Usually I just do it with a hose and then spin in the grease, so this is, I think maybe it's just lots of different, can't see my face, it's lots of different processes that I don't normally do and generally just avoid, so yeah, washing fibre is one that I don't like. So I'm going to start initially by doing a soak with this and some rainwater that I've got in a bucket. It's got a hole in it, so we'll see how long that works for. While that's in there, I'm going to collect and start making some soap. So there are natural plants which are called surfactants, and that basically means that they work like soap. Soapwort is one of them, which grows nearby, and that smells amazing, and I have not been able to propagate it in my garden, which I'm very sad about. But apparently another one that works really well as laundry detergent is ivy, and I've got that growing all over the shed. So in my dye pot that I bought ages ago, there's dye only, not for food, I have started cutting up an initial piece of ivy. So my thinking is, I cut them up into little bits. I googled a while ago how to do this, and I'm going to soak those in water, basically just cook it for 15 minutes, and then strain out the bits of leaf. And then I think directly into the hot pot, because I'm nervous about felting the wool as well. I think that's something else that's nervous about dyeing it as fibre rather than dyeing it as yarn. I think I'm just going to put it directly into the pot of hot soap and let it soak. I think that's going to be the way that I do it. For dye stuff, I've got a plant, because I found it. I've got these leaves. The tree is red robin, so the fresh leaf, pull one off, looks like that. And the leaves at the end turn this kind of bright red. And a full year ago, I kept hold of them, so they go from this to this. So they're all dried out. They've just been hanging out in the shed, waiting for me to have a go at using it. I'm going to cut some of these up. I'm going to cut them up small, like the ivy, with the scissors. I'll probably do that while I'm processing the other bits and stuff. So I suspect I'll be moving stuff between bucket and saucepan. And I'm going to have a go at dyeing with these, and then I'm going to have a go at using a modifier. I googled this, like Mine Walden says, Google the plant. This is known as the red robin, or the photinia, I think, the Latin name for it. So I googled it. I found a lot of people dyeing things with robin redbreast as just their dye name, like candy apple red or whatever. So that wasn't super helpful. But someone did have a picture. The link to the blog didn't work, but they did have a picture of them using these in a dye bath. I didn't weigh my fibre just before I dunked it into the water, which I think is important. I've just sort of grabbed a handful, and I've got lots and lots of leaves, so I'm going to do it until I guess the pot's half full or something, and then I'm going to soak them in this, and then I'm going to use an iron modifier to try and depress the colour, because I like my colours to be dark and moody, or greyish, and kind of muted in that way. So that's the plan. I'm bringing you with me, and we're going to get through this together, and then if that's not very long or not very interesting, or I forget to shoot loads of it, I might show the spinning and knitting process as well. But right now we are dyeing the fibre. Okay, so I'm in the process of making I'm going to call it a scouring solution, or detergent, and I I've had the ivy leaves in a pot of water with the lid on, my dyeing pot, the same ones, because I feel like ivy leaves toxic. I didn't get myself a spoon while I was in the charity shop, so I just have this stick, which is a piece of trellis. It's only got one rusty nail in it. I'm sure I'll be fine. And I did get it up to boiling, which I feel like was probably unwise and probably not the advised bit for you just need to simmer it for 15 minutes. But it did kind of end up getting to boiling. So yeah, I've taken the lid off the pot and I've given it a bit of a stir, and that's like letting the heat dissipate a little bit, and I've reduced the heat on the hob. It's now like a 3 out of 6. For what it looks like visually, it's kind of looking like a cup of mint tea. And it had quite a nice smell when I took the lid off initially. It kind of just like a nice sort of grassy smell. I'm not sure if this is like really bad for your respiratory system. So I mean, I've got the door open, like both into the house and then like into the end garden. So getting a reasonable amount of ventilation just in case this is bad. So I'm not taking big huffing breaths of it because I think it might be. But yeah, it's brewing away and kind of looking like tea. The conker-based scour that I saw my Malden do was like a sort of thick hand soap, and so I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be trying to get this to. I guess I could look at the blog again, but I'm not going to. So I'm just going to let it scout, like bubble away for 15 minutes, then let it just like I've forgotten all my words. I'm going to let it bubble away for 15 minutes and then take out the ivy leaves, chuck them in the compost bin, and then just put my scour. I'm going to squeeze out the rainwater that's in there and just put it in there like with the hot detergent with the ivy leaves taken out of it, and not provide any additional heat, and that's going to be my scouring process. And I think I'll leave it in there for maybe half an hour or something. I want to get the dye bath all set up before I then need to like cook dinner and do evening tasks. So and then I think I'm just going to have it bubbling away for a couple of hours, like really low but not needing as much supervision. I think that's going to work well for my evening, because I think as well part of like the process of dyeing stuff is that it takes hours and hours. So there's like a little thought about how I'm going to integrate it into other areas of my life. So 15 minutes, I've got a timer on, it's got another 11. Pop the ivy leaves out, pop the fibre in there, and see if I can get enough lanolin out to get any kind of dye in it. This might just be a big fail video, like my first attempt at natural dyeing by myself, and what happens is nothing. Or I'll felt it. What happens is I've just felted a bit of floof. It's okay. I have a whole fleece. It's fine. There's more of Barbara's fleece. It's okay if some of it goes in the compost bin. Fingers crossed for that not being the outcome. Okay, so I've got most of the bits out, and it now both looks and smells like nettle tea. Fairly certain that ivy is toxic, so we'll absolutely not be doing a taste comparison. But it's kind of got a bit of a butter-kissed popcorn flavour about it. So, grabbing out my floof. It's definitely still like sticky with lanolin, but the water is like dirty. So just gonna pop that in there. Give it a poke with the stick when I'm inside. Just don't want to drip. Okay, so it's back in the pot on the hob. I've given it a poke so everything is now saturated. There's no dry bits sticking out the top, and hopefully all of the bubbles will be gone. So I'm just popping the lid back on. All of the heat is off, so it shouldn't be conferring too much additional heat into the pot, but I've put it back on the same hob that I was like heating with it, so there's going to be a little bit of heat coming off the hob and a little bit of heat that's still in the water, and I'm hoping that that's going to be enough to get rid of the rest of the lanolin. And if not, then I'm just going to use some fairy washing up liquid, and that should then work. So I'll get a better idea when I squeeze it if it's still like feeling sticky and lanolin-y. But I think even if I'm only soaking it in hot water that's like not doing anything, that'll probably be quite effective at getting rid of a lot of the lanolin. So we'll see, because I think it does need to be really clean for any dye to take. Okay, so I just lifted the lid and gave everything a little squish, and it is so grim. I thought, oh no, the ivy has dyed it. The ivy has not dyed it. There's just like dark brown. Dark brown water here. Okay, gonna give it a bit of a rinse in the garden and see how sticky it is, if it's still like full of lanolin. It's still quite hot in there actually. I was just gonna like put my hand in and squeeze, but I need to not do that. Okay, I'm gonna empty it out, give it a bit of a rinse and see how it's feeling and whether I need to use some fairy. Okay, so I did a couple of rinses with some hot water because I was very conscious of trying not to shock the wool by putting cold water on it, and it's pretty dang clean. It doesn't feel like sticky, like in the way that it does with loads of lanolin on it, so I'm going to say that it worked sufficiently. It's still got quite a bit of vegetable matter in, and it's still like got a little bit of like darkness, like dark spots to it, even when it's been like squeezed out, which can suggest dirt. But also maybe it's just a bit of staining and maybe things are just going to come out. I've seen people before when they've washed their fibre that they still have like dirtiness in the tips. So I'm gonna go with it as it is. It might affect colour uptake, but I don't know. Now I think what I'm supposed to do is like prep the dye bath, like get the dye all like working and nice, and then put the wool in. But I don't really have a conception of that. So I think I'm just gonna chuck all of my leaves, which I cut up small while I was doing other bits of process. I'm just gonna chuck them all in on top. I'm gonna give it a bit of a stir around, and then put a whole load of water on it, give it a bit of a stir around, and then just like have it on really low heat for like a couple of hours, and then put in an iron modifier. And I think I'll just see how that works. I probably should be doing this in 2 steps, but I don't really know what I'm doing. Probably also worth noting I'm not mordanting my fibre because I'm using a tannin based dye, because I'm using like leaves and bark and stuff. So apparently the tannins in that, which is the thing that gives it the colour, also act as a mordant. So yeah. I've also not weighed the dye stuff or anything. I figure I'm just gonna try it out, see if it does anything, and then go from there around getting in specifics. I'm feeling like I want to do a bad job, but just do a job with the least number of barriers, and then I can work on doing a better job next time. But at the moment I'm feeling like if I was trying to do too much, I think that would stop me doing it at all. So we are going like anti-perfectionist and just mischief, chaos. We are trying to do a chaos goblin activity while being a mischief sprite. So I'm going to chuck some water on this and get it simmering. Okay, so we're into like an hour into letting this bubble away. I had to turn it down. I had it on 2 and now I've set it back down to 1 out of like 6 on my hob. And having the lid on I think it's really keeping the heat in because it's bubbling, and I wasn't intending to have it look like it was like boiling. I was just giving it a poke and it's like very actively boiling still, which may or may not be messing with the colour or the wool integrity. And it all looks quite dark when it's like in here, but then as soon as I like lift it out, the tumble dryer, it's looking quite, it's a bit tricky to see because it's still full of leaves, but it's looking kind of like sad beige. It's looking slightly warm toned sad beige. I don't know if, because there's so many factors, like the temperature that you have something, the scouring, there's so many bits of it that I don't know if I've done it for long enough or put in enough or anything like that. So I've kind of got sad beige, slightly warm toned. It does look like there is some colour in it. I think maybe I just need to compare it against like an actual bit of like white, natural white fleece, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to let it probably bubble while I'm cooking. Let's put that away, it doesn't go in food water. So I'm going to cook some pasta, I'm going to let it bubble away on that, so that's probably going to be like another half an hour, and then I think I'm going to turn the heat off and let it sit for a little bit. And then maybe before I go out, because I'm going to go out after dinner, I'll put in the iron modifier, like take the leaves out, put in the iron modifier, and then let it sit in that water with the iron in it overnight. I think I'll probably take out a little sample so that I know what it looks like without the iron in it, because I think that'll probably be quite good for learning, because this is just my first attempt at dyeing anything ever, so I can sort of see what the effect of that is. For my iron modifier, it's just a rusty nail that's been sat in a jar of vinegar for like a year, so also we'll see how effectively that's holding up, or if I can get the jar open. Otherwise, whole experiment moot. Maybe not, but you know, still can't do the thing I want. So check back in. Okay, so I had dinner, so it's had probably like 2 hours now of like being heated. There's my dog trying to get in. And it's actually looking like it's taking colour, which is cool. Originally it was kind of coming up in a sort of beigey shade, but I'm going to say it looks kind of like brown. It's obviously like wetter when it's in the water, but as I like pick it up out and all of the liquid drains out of it, it's still like a medium-y, slightly warm brown. So I'm going to take out just a little sample before I add an iron modifier, so I've got something to like compare it to. I've just got that in my celebrations tin that I usually use for like washing yarn, so that's already like dedicated yarn space. That's not going to have like cake in it or anything later on. Okay, I've grabbed out my like jar. I don't know if this. I grabbed out my jar that I had like vinegar and a nail in, and it's gone super thick. Like maybe I didn't just dissolve the rust off the nail, which is what it looked like before. Like it's properly like thick. Okay, I can still open the jar. I may have dissolved like more of the nail, but that's iron, and there's like sludge in it, so that's just kind of the liquid off the top. Let's give that a stir, because when they were doing it in the workshop, they said that it still needed kind of some cooking when you add the iron to it. Ooh, yeah. Okay, it's changed a lot, and it does like change instantly. I'm thinking this might not need to sit overnight. I'm thinking that maybe like a couple of hours, and then if I pour it all out before I go to bed, that might be alright. Yeah, so it's, I think, just based on this like initial squish in, like the water has gone from being like brown to like almost black. I think tricky to tell if there's a colour difference. Oh, I think there is. It's like slightly greenier, a little bit less warm, a little bit more kind of cool and greenish. So I don't know. It's quite fun to have both colours, I guess. So yeah, I'm going to let that sit while I go out for the evening, and then I will give it a poke and probably like drain it off. Actually, I don't think it even needs that long. I'm supposed to be going out in like an hour. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let it sit for the hour, and then I'm going to drain it before I go out and give it a little rinse. And in the meantime, rinse the bit that I've taken out, that's my like practice bit, and then lay it out, and then hopefully by the time that by the time we're going out, I should have like a bit that's rinsed and able to set it to dry overnight and see what it looks like when it's dry. I suspect it's going to take a couple of days to dry, so it'll probably be Friday night or something. It's Wednesday now, so yeah, let's see how it goes. It looks like it's actually working. That's exciting. Okay, so it's been another hour of the iron sitting in there. I haven't had any additional heat like put through it, but I did leave it on the hob where it was hot. And we have a nice dark slaty looking grey. Pretty neat. Let's poke that all out. So in total that was like 2 hours, like an hour and a half of heating, plus like an hour or like half an hour of just sitting, and then like the iron modifier for another hour. So yeah, that's in total like 5 hours. I definitely started this process at about 3 o'clock and it's definitely 8:30 now. So is that all my fibre? I think it is. Okay, I'm gonna chuck the rest outside. And then I'm going to go through and pick all the leaves out, give this a proper rinse, and then I think I'll do like a rinsed, and I might try and dry it with like a hairdryer because there's not very much. I'll do a rinsed and dried like final reveal, and then I think probably I've got like a project planned for it, so I think I might make that a separate project vlog. So I'm going to go and pick all the leaves out of this and give it a little bit of a rinse. Okay, it's reveal time! And I've dried out a couple of samples with the hairdryer because I couldn't bother to wait around the next morning. And these are what I have. Hopefully like the white t-shirt and the natural light will give a good representation of what the colours look like. So this is the one that was, they were both scoured with the ivy soap, and then this one's had just the leaves and boiling, and then I took it out as my just like interest sample, and it's come out this light brown colour. I'd say it's kind of like a fawn or camel shade, it's a dark beige. Yeah, dark beige, light brown. It's definitely got colour to it. It's definitely nothing has happened, but it's quite a light shade. I don't know if it would have got darker if I'd left it in for even longer, but this did have like a reasonable amount of time with it, and it's definitely taken up a decent amount of colour. And then this is with the iron modifier. This colour's a little bit harder to define. Like obviously it's grey, but I was trying to work out kind of what the undertones were, and when it's got the natural light on it, it looks like very sort of warm and with quite a lot of brown tones underneath it. But then when you see it kind of a bit more in the dark, there's quite a lot of green in it, so it's kind of got a little bit more of that like gungy sort of khaki shade. So yeah, so that colour and that colour. I thought what might be kind of helpful to do is compare. So my sticker box, we'll look the sticker up. This is a bat that I carded up a little while ago from Barbara. It's had the rinse, it's still got a reasonable amount of lanolin in it, but obviously it's been carded. So this is from the same sheep that provided the fleece I dyed. So this is the colour comparison. So you can see how much colour's been taken up, and it's definitely like enough to be distinctive, especially with the grey. But even with the brown, like the contrast isn't showing up super well on camera. Is that more accurate? Yeah, there we go. A little bit of shade. But yeah, there's like a definite contrast in there, even with the brown. So you can definitely say that colour has been taken up. And the other thing I was thinking about with grey is like, cool, I've made some grey wool, but I already have the whole fleeces from last year and this year of a grey sheep called Florence. So I thought I'd see how that compared. So this is a bat from Florence that I carded up around the same time. And as we can see, what I've dyed is darker overall. A bit tricky to see. Like, there's not loads and loads and loads of contrast. There's enough that if you had them like laid next to each other, you'd tell the difference. But there's really far apart, maybe not as much. With the natural fleece colour, the colours achieved much more by having a mixture of white and black threads. So the strands individually are kind of coming up in black and grey. I don't know if that's going to be visible, but like these are black hairs, and then there's like white in there as well. So the overall grey is a very like heathered colour created, and that kind of stays in the spinning and creates this kind of overall grey. So there's a lot of tonal variation, and yeah, heathering is probably appropriate. Whereas when you've dyed something, it is entirely that colour. Every strand is that colour, unless you've got like pockets of air or whatever. So that kind of creates a difference in feel as well. And the other thing I was thinking about like comparing it with is, I mentioned I went on a natural dyeing course, just like an afternoon workshop, and they had walnut there, and they did walnut with an iron modifier. And actually, the colour that's come out from that is very much. I got the iron one, but even without the iron, it looked kind of like this. And it's not the same. It's definitely not the same, but it's also got that same kind of browny grey quality. So I think that kind of like warm grey is like just a part of the natural dyeing with the iron modifier. So yeah, a little bit of a comparison to that, and quite a good strong colour, because walnut is like the reputable dye stuff. This is obviously my first like home dyeing without, like, from natural dye, without any supervision or instructions beyond what I googled a while ago. So it definitely worked, and it seems to have worked quite well and been like quite a strong result. So like it was successful, and I've done what I set out to achieve. But as you can possibly tell by my tone, I'm not like super thrilled by this, because like, if this is a really good result, I don't know how much more I want to invest in this specifically as a craft. So I don't have brown fleeces, and I've decided I'm just doing I'm just going to have the fleece from the specific sheep, and they come in the colours that they come in. And so I've got the white fleece, I've got grey fleece, and I've got black fleece. And if I want any other colours, then I have to either buy them or dye them. So I guess this gives me a way to dye brown, which I think by itself could be quite helpful as far as like interest and colour blending and things like that. But I don't know, brown isn't necessarily the colour I want, and I don't know how easy it's going to be to achieve the colours that I do want with natural dyeing, because the colours that I really like are like super saturated, like the colour of my carpet up here, like this really strong red, really dark, really saturated. And one of the things that I was thinking was like, oh well, if I make like red, I could then put some iron on it, or like people saying copper as well, like does things. So I could just put some iron on it, and that would make it a dark version, just like adding in some grey, and that would make it moodier, and it's the way that she was describing it. But I don't know if the level of saturation that you can get, and she had some bright things. She did have some bright things, but I don't know if I can make what I want to make. So I think this isn't going to be the last of my natural dyeing adventures. I'm not feeling like wildly enthusiastic about going and doing loads, because I don't know, I don't like yellow, I don't like pale colours, and you know, I don't know that there's like loads there for me. I think the next bit, I wanted to dye the floofs because of other reasons, which like I've got a specific project planned, and it needed me to be dyeing it like the wool as opposed to the yarn. But I think any sort of future dyeing projects is going to be yarn rather than fibre, because I hate fibre. I hate washing fibre while it's fibre. I think it feels like touching spider webs, that same like, yeah, nasty feeling. And washing yarn is absolutely fine, so definitely going to be dyeing it in this form rather than in this form in the future. There was a success thing that I was talking about. Yeah, it was successful. I was thinking about like maybe dip dyeing, that there might be some other ways that I can use natural dyes to create something which I then, because if I'm using the yarn rather than the fibre, I have control over how like the yarn in the end looks like. So it might be that some sort of like dipping process, or there may be some like nice way to combine it with some of the other like natural shades that I then end up with, because like if I blended this through with like the Florence fleece where it's kind of got that heathering, it kind of gives an additional dimension to it. So it's possible that I would be able to use it as like some sort of dipping with yarn, but yeah. The other thing, which I don't know if this is like a bonus to literally anyone else, but the fleece at the end, having like dyed and been like good with the dye, having definitely taken up the colour, is not hideously dry. So I mentioned that I usually just like give something a bit of a spray with the hose, and then spin in the grease and then wash it properly afterwards, which I think would be my process for dyeing any kind of yarn in future. But I scoured this extra. It doesn't feel super duper dry. There's still lanolin in this because like, I'm picking it up and I'm giving it a squeeze, and it still feels like I'm kind of like moisturized, or like when you touch a piece of wood that's been like treated with oil. It's got that kind of feel to it. It's not like greasy, and like it's definitely got less grease in it than when we started, but yeah, it still kind of has some lanolin in it, which is nice because I like that when I'm spinning. So yeah, that's like a plus for me. And also I think one of the things I was worried about was not being able to get all of the oil out, and apparently you don't have to. So maybe I would have got a super dark, super saturated colour if I had. I don't know. Also, while I did Google the dye stuff, I found one image of someone dyeing yarn, which linked to a blog which didn't go anywhere. Like it never loaded. The image that they had on Flickr, I think it was, of them using the same red robin leaves was getting a red colour out of it, whereas I've obviously got a brown, and I think that might be because I cooked it too hot, because it was definitely like boiling, and I was definitely trying to not have it boiling. I didn't have a thermometer like we did in the class because I was just kind of going for it. But they said with the madder, which is what we were using, if it goes like above 80 degrees C, so obviously that's like still below boiling, then it starts to bring out the brown tones rather than the reds. So it's entirely possible as well that I got like a different colour because I did it like that. Also, it was dried and I'd left it for a year, but I think as far as like effectiveness goes, it's still very effective. So yeah, maybe see what the fresh leaves do, but also don't know if I'll bother. Because I'm not like, oh, look at all the different colours that have come out, because it's mostly just like, I hate all colours. Oh, and the other thing, because like one of the things that I was thinking about doing was like, maybe if I dye things and I end up with these kind of vibrant colours, I can then just put like a little bit of iron on it, and then that will make it kind of that grey mixture, and it'll make it kind of nice, moody, sort of grey, but like with all these different undertones. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel doing that anymore. Like that was my thought coming away on Friday, but like when I washed this, which was just like wool that I'd boiled in leaves, it felt like I was, I don't know, cleaning vegetables or just like washing things in stock. Like it felt like food or gardening or something like that. It felt very like attached to the natural world and stuff. When I rinsed this out, all I could think of was the last bit in Lord of the Rings, like in the book series, where they get back to the Shire and it's all become like horrifically industrial, and they have to use magic elf dust to make it like magical and pastoral again. Like, this felt like pollution in a way. Like, when I was pouring the water away from this, it was like, this is fine, it's whatever, I'll throw it in my compost bin, whatever. And when I was like rinsing this out, it felt like I was rinsing out like hair dye and like really chemically hair dye, which I'd like just rinsed out before. I mean, I don't know, maybe I could smell the hair dye from the stuff that was like drying on the rack as well. But like, I don't know. It didn't feel good to be like putting that back out in the world. It felt like I was doing something like not great. And I realised that like people use bleach and cleaning chemicals and hair dye and all of those things, and it's fine. Like, I don't think I've done anything particularly like horrific. But also I don't know that that's something that I want to be doing loads of. It felt gungy, it felt chemically, it didn't feel great to do, you know. So I'll see. I'll see if I do any more natural dyeing. I kind of want to try acid dyes. So we'll see what happens there. I've got some indigo powder from the yarn show I went to last year that I was a bit nervous about using, and I've got some alum and stuff. So yeah, and I've been kind of persuaded by that one Mine Walden video to try oak, because I found a nearby oak tree and I found one singular oak gall, so maybe we'll try like that sort of natural black stuff. But yeah, overall it's like, it worked, but also which might be like a bit of a bummer to end the video on. I don't know. We'll see how many reels we can fit in this dead rat. Catch you later.